John's boots hit the pavement with a slow, steady rhythm, each step heavy with dust from the Texas backroads. His clothes were simple, faded jeans and a dark cotton shirt clinging to his back, soaked by the heat of the afternoon sun. He didn't look like he belonged in this part of town, and certainly not in a showroom that shimmered more like a high-end dealership than a place to buy farming equipment. The glass walls gleamed under the sun, casting streaks of light across the polished steel bodies of massive tractors. Each machine looked like it had just rolled off a Hollywood set. Powerful, pristine, intimidating. John paused for a breath before stepping inside. He wasn't here by accident. His son, Logan Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Machinery, one of the largest agricultural brands in the country, had given him a quiet assignment: visit a few stores without revealing who he was and see how customers were being treated. Logan wanted honesty, raw, unfiltered insight into the soul of the business he built. And John, his father and the man who had taught him everything about hard work and integrity, was the only person he trusted for the job. The second John stepped through the doors, he felt the shift. Cool air wrapped around his weathered skin, a stark contrast to the burning sun outside. The scent of new leather, polished steel, and floor wax hit him like a reminder that he was far from his usual environment. He moved slowly, taking in the sights. He wasn't here to be seen. He was here to observe. But the store noticed him, and not in a good way. Behind the glossy counter stood sharply dressed salesmen in slim-fit suits and designer shoes. Their eyes scanned John's boots, his sun-beaten hands, his simple clothes. A few exchanged quiet glances and barely restrained chuckles. In their world of luxury machines and high-profile clients, John looked like a misplaced relic from a forgotten town. One of them, a tall, confident man named Chad, approached. His smile was polished, but empty. His eyes said everything his voice tried to hide. "Can I help you with something, sir?" he asked, his tone oozing with condescension. John met his gaze without hesitation. "Calm, steady, just looking," he replied, voice low but firm. Chad paused, clearly unimpressed. He offered a forced chuckle, then turned on his heel, muttering something under his breath as he walked away. John continued a slow walk down the aisles, the sound of his boots muffled by the showroom's thick, spotless carpet. He stopped in front of one of the top-tier tractors, a beast of a machine, with chrome accents, an advanced GPS system, and a price tag that would make most folks blink twice. John studied it with interest, not because he was buying, but because he understood it. Machines like these were built for men like him. They just didn't know it. Then Chad returned. This time, the fake charm was gone. "That model might be a little out of your range, sir," he said, smirking. "I can show you something a bit more practical. Maybe something closer to what you're used to." Laughter rippled behind him from the other salesman. John heard it, felt it, but didn't let it shake him. "I'm just looking," he said again, his voice even softer now. But Chad wasn't finished. He leaned in slightly, his voice lower, almost like a joke between buddies. "Hey, no shame in admiring things you'll never buy, right?" And just like that, something shifted in the air. The weight of the insult didn't show on John's face, but it sank deep, not as offense, but as understanding. He saw clearly now, this wasn't just about him. It was about a culture, a way of thinking, one that judged people by their boots instead of their backbone. John turned, his gaze slow and unshaken, and walked further into the showroom. Chad laughed again, louder this time. But the storm was already brewing, and none of them saw it coming. Have you ever been judged just by how you look, before anyone took the time to know who you really are? If this story touched your heart, comment your name and the city you're watching from. We'll send a special shout out in the next video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you believe respect and kindness should always come first. What happens next will surprise you, and maybe even change the way you see the world. Stick around, John's story is just beginning. John moved deeper into the gleaming showroom, the low hum of quiet laughter still echoing behind him. The heavy air conditioning pressed against his weathered skin, but it wasn't the cold that chilled him. It was the weight of being underestimated. He walked slowly, taking his time. Every step felt deliberate, almost meditative. His eyes passed over each polished machine with a mix of admiration and familiarity. These were powerful beasts designed to move the earth. But John had spent a lifetime moving mountains with far less. He paused beside a jet black model, the most expensive in the store. Towering wheels, reinforced frame, state-of-the-art navigation system. This wasn't a machine, it was a statement. He ran a callous hand gently along its body, feeling the metal beneath his fingertips. He knew this equipment better than anyone in that room. But no one asked, no one cared. At the counter, Chad leaned against the glass, chatting with a few of the other salesmen. His voice carried just enough to be heard, his tone laced with mockery. I mean, come on. Guy looks like he wandered in here from a cornfield. A few snickers followed. One of them, a younger guy named Ryan, tried to quiet him, but Chad waved it off with a grin. He's not buying anything, just wasting time. John heard every word, but he didn't flinch. He simply turned and walked toward another display, a red, rugged model built for endurance and performance. He was here to observe, and that's exactly what he was doing. But inside, something stirred. Not anger, not pride, just a quiet disappointment. A sadness that came from years of knowing how quick people were to judge what they didn't understand. Back near the front, a different employee noticed the tension rising. His name was Michael, older, seasoned, and respected among the team. Unlike the others, he watched John with curiosity, not contempt. There was something about the old man's calm that made him pause. Then Chad struck again. He approached John with that same empty smile, this time holding a brochure. I found something that might be more your speed, he said, waving the pamphlet like a joke. A good entry-level utility model. Tough basic, kind of like you, huh? John looked at him, really looked. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't sad. They were still. I told you, he said quietly. I'm just looking. But Chad didn't stop. He leaned in, lowering his voice. It's okay to admire things you can't afford. Just don't waste my time, all right? The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the other salesmen stopped pretending not to hear. That's when Michael stepped forward. Chad, he said firmly. The younger man turned, surprised by the sudden shift in tone. What? Michael's eyes didn't leave John. What are you doing? Chad chuckled. Relax. You're embarrassing yourself. Michael cut in. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. And this store. Chad's smile faded. Michael turned to John, his expression softening. Sir, I'm sorry for the way you've been treated. John nodded slowly but said nothing. Chad was still confused. Why are you defending him? Michael glanced around at the silent room, then back at Chad. Because I've been in this business long enough to know that the people who look like they have the least are often the ones who built the most. That moment, brief as it was, shifted something in the atmosphere. Chad looked shaken for the first time, his confidence cracking. But the full weight of his mistake had yet to settle, because what none of them knew was who John really was, and what he was here to do. The tension in the showroom lingered like a heavy fog. Conversations had died down. Laughter was replaced with sidelong glances and awkward silence. Even the shine of the machine seemed duller now, as if the building itself felt the shift. John moved on, slowly, deliberately. He didn't look back. His boots pressed against the marble floors with quiet resolve, the sound subtle but steady. He paused again, this time near a mid-sized model designed for precision and control. His fingers brushed the smooth curve of its frame, as if remembering something only he could see. In the background, Chad stood frozen near the counter, arms crossed, a nervous energy creeping into his posture. Michael remained close by, still watching with quiet eyes. There was something about John's presence that unsettled them now, something they couldn't name, but could no longer ignore. John wasn't just some tired old farmer. He moved with a calm that demanded respect, even without asking for it. Still, Chad refused to let go of his arrogance. I don't get it, he muttered under his breath. Why are we all acting like this guy is someone important? Michael didn't answer. He didn't have to, because at that moment, a quiet voice spoke from the other end of the room. Chad, it said. Everyone turned. From the far corner of the showroom, a man stepped forward. His presence was understated, but his posture, straight, focused, confident, carried the gravity of someone used to being in control. He wore no suit, no flashy badge, but his name carried weight. Logan Carter, the CO, the founder, the son. He had been standing there all along, observing. The color drained from Chad's face. "Mr. Carter," he stammered, suddenly aware of every mistake that now echoed louder than any apology could. Logan's gaze didn't shift. It stayed fixed on Chad, unblinking, unreadable. "Do you know who that man is?" he asked, his voice low but unmistakably firm. Chad looked around, panicked. I assumed he was just what?" Logan interrupted, taking a step forward. "Just a poor old man? Just another stranger who didn't deserve your attention." Chad swallowed hard. His mouth opened, then closed. No words came. Logan turned to look at John, not with pity, but with reverence. "That man is John Carter," he said clearly. "My father. The reason this company exists. The reason I know what hard work, humility, and dignity look like." The silence that followed hit harder than any raised voice. Chad took a step back, suddenly feeling the weight of every judgment he had made. The laughter, the smirks, the words spoken without thought, without care. He looked at John again, really looked, and for the first time saw more than the clothes, the boots, or the dust on his shoulders. He saw the man. I didn't know," Chad whispered, barely audible. Logan's eyes hardened. "That's the problem." Across the room, the other employees stood frozen. Ryan looked at the floor, guilt washing over him. A few others quietly began to step away, unsure what to do. John remained still. He hadn't said a word. His silence spoke volumes. He hadn't needed to raise his voice. He hadn't needed to fight back. His strength was in restraint, his dignity unshaken. Logan turned to his father, the respect in his expression clear. "You didn't deserve that," he said. "None of it." John finally spoke, just one sentence, quiet but firm. "I didn't come here to be treated special, just to be treated with respect." That single line hit every corner of the room, like a ripple through still water. Chad lowered his head, the weight of shame pressing against his chest. Michael, though disappointed, looked relieved. Finally, the truth had surfaced. John nodded once, then began to walk toward the exit. No drama, no anger, just quiet strength. He had done what he came to do. And now, it was up to everyone else to deal with what had been exposed. John's departure left behind a silence that felt almost sacred. No door slammed. No harsh words echoed through the air. But somehow, his quiet exit was louder than any outburst could have been. Every eye in the showroom remained fixed on the empty space he'd left behind, as if expecting him to return, or hoping he wouldn't. Chad stood like a statue, his jaw clenched, heart pounding in his ears. Moments ago, he was the one in control, confident, dominant. Now, he felt like a child who'd spoken out of turn in a room full of grown men. And Logan Carter's words, they were still ringing in his head. "That man is John Carter, my father, the reason this company exists." He had humiliated the very person responsible for everything he took for granted. The brand he worked for, the paycheck he earned, the showroom he thought he owned with his presence. No one dared speak first. It was Michael who broke the silence. He exhaled slowly and turned to Logan. "We didn't know," he said, "but that doesn't excuse anything." Logan nodded, but his expression remained firm. "That's exactly right." Ryan, the youngest among the group, stepped forward with trembling hands. "Mr. Carter, I didn't say anything. I should have. I just laughed." Logan looked at him. "And you regret that now?" Ryan lowered his head. "Yes, sir, I do." Chad was still frozen. He opened his mouth, searching for something, anything, to say. But what could possibly erase what had just happened? "I didn't mean to," he started. "Don't," Logan said, calm but final. "You meant every word. That's what makes it worse." The sting of truth hit harder than any reprimand. Chad had been trained in sales techniques, product specs, persuasion tactics, but no one had ever taught him what to do when the customer walked in wearing humility instead of wealth. He had mistaken silence for weakness, simplicity for irrelevance. Now he was drowning in the consequences of that mistake. Logan walked slowly to the center of the room, eyes scanning the team. "This store is not just about selling machines," he said. "It's about representing something greater, a set of values. My father didn't build this company with money. He built it with calluses on his hands and sweat on his brow. He treated every person he met with the same respect, whether they were a CEO or a tractor mechanic. His words carried no rage, only a calm intensity that struck even deeper. If we can't honor that here," he continued, "then we have no right to be part of this company." The words settled over the team like a fog of realization. Each person carried the weight differently, some with shame, others with deep reflection. For the first time, they weren't worried about performance metrics or sales targets. They were thinking about something far more serious. Chad's shoulders sagged under pressure. His voice cracked when he finally spoke again. "Mr. Carter, I made a terrible mistake." Logan's eyes didn't blink. "Yes, you did. I don't expect you to forgive me," Chad added. "I just want to know what I can do to make it right." Logan studied him for a long moment. "That's not a question you ask me," he said. "It's a question you ask yourself." Michael nodded slowly. "And maybe start by treating the next person who walks through those doors like they belong, before they even say a word." Chad looked down, ashamed, but for the first time, something sincere flickered in his face. Not self-pity, but genuine remorse. The rest of the team began moving again, slowly returning to their stations, but nothing felt the same. The energy had shifted. The atmosphere, once filled with superficial charm and sales pressure, now held something deeper. A mirror had been placed in front of them, and they couldn't look away. Logan remained still for a moment, then glanced once more at the exit. His father was long gone, but the message he left behind lingered in every corner of the room. Without a word, Logan turned and walked out, not to chase after his father, not to fix what had happened, but to let the lesson breathe so it would settle where it needed to. Stories like this remind us how powerful silence, humility, and respect can truly be. If this chapter moved you, drop a comment with your first name and the city you're watching from. We'll be sending a special shout out in the next video. And if you believe the world needs more kindness and less judgment, leave a like to show your support. Your name, your city, your voice matters here. The next morning, the showroom felt different. It wasn't the lighting or the arrangement of the machines. It wasn't even the polished floor or the music playing softly through the speakers. It was something less visible, yet unmistakably present. The weight of what had happened the day before still lingered, like a shadow on the wall no one dared to touch. Chad arrived earlier than usual. He didn't breeze in with his usual swagger. He didn't fix his tie in the mirror glass or joke with the others about closing the day's biggest sale. Instead, he moved quietly, eyes focused, shoulders a little lower than before. He had slept little that night. His thoughts had replayed the moment over and over. The look in John's eyes, Logan's voice, the silence that had wrapped around him like a consequence. Regret had a texture, and he was now feeling it on his skin. Ryan was already there, sitting behind the counter, sipping coffee with both hands wrapped around the cup like he needed it for more than warmth. When Chad entered, their eyes met. No words were exchanged, but there was no judgment in Ryan's gaze, just quiet understanding. Michael walked in a few minutes later, nodding at both men before heading to the back office. He didn't say much either, but his presence alone grounded the space, like a compass silently pointing north. They had work to do, but it wasn't just about sales today. It was about change. By mid-morning, the first customer walked in, an older woman in overalls and worn sneakers, her gray hair tied in a loose bun, and a notebook tucked under her arm. She moved slowly, but with intention, the kind of person who didn't ask for attention, but noticed everything. Normally, Chad might have glanced once and dismissed her as someone just browsing. But today, he stood up. He walked over slowly, adjusting nothing about himself, letting his voice drop into something real. "Good morning, ma'am," he said. "Can I help you with anything?" She looked surprised, not by the greeting, but by the sincerity behind it. "I'm looking for something durable," she said, "for some pretty rough terrain." Chad nodded, listening carefully. He didn't try to upsell her. He didn't steer her toward the shiniest model. He asked questions, real ones, about her land, her needs, her budget, her past tractors, what worked and what didn't. As she answered, something in Chad's face changed. He wasn't performing. He was listening. Ryan watched from the counter, eyebrows slightly raised. This was different. Even Michael peeked around the corner, one brow arching in quiet approval. As the conversation continued, Chad found himself shifting, not just in tone, but in mindset. He realized how much he'd missed by assuming he already knew who people were before they ever spoke. The customer wasn't just a number. She was a story, and he had been missing the most important part, the human one. At one point, the woman laughed softly. "You new here?" she asked. Chad hesitated. "No, but I think I'm just starting to show up properly." She smiled. "Well, you're off to a good start." By the time she left, not with a sale, but with a catalog, a contact card, and a sincere handshake, Chad felt something inside him loosen. Not pride, not ego, just purpose. Later that day, Logan stopped by. He didn't say much, just walked the floor, greeting each employee with a nod, observing the interactions from a respectful distance. When he passed Chad, he paused for a second. Chad straightened instinctively. But Logan simply looked at him, really looked, and gave a single nod. It wasn't approval. It wasn't forgiveness. It was permission to grow. And in that subtle gesture, Chad found something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. That evening, after the last customer had left, Michael called a quiet meeting near the front of the store. No speeches, no notes, just words from someone who had seen enough to know what mattered. "We can't change what happened yesterday," he said, "but we can change who we are tomorrow." Everyone nodded. The rest of the day passed with calm, quiet attentiveness. Customers were treated like guests. The jokes were lighter, the tension softer. Something had shifted. It wasn't a revolution. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real, and that John Carter would have understood better than anyone. For 3 days, the atmosphere in the showroom remained calm, almost tender. Chad had become noticeably different. He arrived early, greeted people by name, and, perhaps most shockingly, listened more than he spoke. The others began to follow suit. Ryan, who once avoided the heavier emotional currents, now took pride in offering his full attention. Michael, always the anchor, served as a quiet guide, correcting gently, encouraging firmly. The store wasn't perfect, but it was trying. And then it happened. Late Friday afternoon, just before closing time, the glass door slid open once more. A man stepped in, tall, pressed shirt, dark sunglasses, Bluetooth in one ear. His shoes clicked sharply on the floor, expensive and loud. He carried himself with that unmistakable energy, entitlement wrapped in style. He didn't smile. He didn't greet. He walked like he owned the place. Chad, standing near the front desk, took a breath. The man strode past the displays and straight toward a limited edition performance tractor in matte graphite. Without asking for help, he pulled out his phone and began recording, narrating in a confident voice. "All right, here it is. Top line specs. Fuel capacity, 120 gallons. Hydraulic lift load, 7,000 pounds. Custom paint job, exclusive to Carter dealerships only." He circled the tractor like a hawk. Employees exchanged glances. A few recognized the type. Michael stepped forward first. "Welcome, sir. May I help you with anything?" The man didn't look up. "No, I'm a reviewer. I go live in 5. Don't interrupt." Then Chad saw it. The logo on the man's shirt. He was a social media influencer, well known in the agriculture tech world. He had over 300,000 followers and was notorious for brutally honest reviews. If he liked you, sales soared. If he didn't, your brand felt it. And now he was here, unannounced, unfiltered. Tension crept in. He tapped his earpiece. "All right, folks, we're rolling," he said to his camera. "Let's talk customer service." Let's see who comes up first. He turned his camera toward the employees. Chad felt the weight of every eye in the room. His heart pounded, but not from fear, from clarity. This was the moment. He stepped forward calmly. No performance, no forced cheer. "Good afternoon, sir. My name is Chad. Can I answer any questions for you?" The man didn't lower the camera. "Are you just talking to me because I've got a mic on?" "No," Chad replied, "because you're a customer." That landed. The influencer blinked just once, then lowered the camera a little. "All right, tell me something I don't already know about this model." Chad nodded and launched into a balanced, informative overview, not flashy, not robotic. He spoke like someone who understood the machine and, more importantly, cared about how it served real people. "Do you know why we added this rear differential locking system?" Chad asked. "A farmer in Nebraska came in last year and told us how he lost traction during early planting season. Our engineers listened. Now it's standard." The influencer tilted his head. "That true?" Every word. A pause. Then the camera turned off. "What's your background?" the man asked. Chad didn't flinch. "I made a mistake recently, and I'm trying to get better at seeing people before I try to sell them anything." The man looked at him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "Good answer." He turned to Michael. "Nice team. You guys almost feel human." Michael grinned. "We're working on it." Without another word, the influencer walked back toward the door, nodding once at Ryan as he passed. "Good energy here," he muttered. "Tell your boss." When the door closed behind him, the room exhaled. Michael patted Chad's shoulder. "That was your test." Chad nodded. "Felt like it." Ryan added, "Felt like hours, too." For a moment, everyone stood still, the weight of what had just happened soaking in. Then Chad chuckled. "Think he'll go easy on us?" Michael smiled. "I think he already did." And somewhere out there, someone was editing a video, one that wouldn't show a flawless store or perfect team, but something far more powerful: growth in real time. Maybe you've been there too, judged by your appearance, misunderstood, or wishing for a second chance to prove who you really are. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're a reminder that growth is possible, respect matters, and dignity doesn't wear a price tag. If you believe the world needs more empathy, more redemption, more moments like this, then this is your space. Subscribe to the channel and become part of a community that values people not for how they look, but for who they are. New stories are coming. Some may shake you, others may heal you, but all of them will remind you it's never too late to become better. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. We'll be right here, waiting for you. The following week began like any other, quiet, methodical, with fresh coffee brewing and sunlight stretching to the tall glass panels of the showroom. But something was different. The laughter was softer, more genuine. The greetings were warmer. Conversations between staff and customers carried a new tone. Not scripted, not rushed, but real. The store wasn't perfect yet, but it was growing into something it hadn't been in a long time. Human. Logan Carter noticed a shift. He'd spent the past few days quietly observing, speaking little, letting the team find their new rhythm without hovering. What he saw gave him hope, but also caution. Change, real change, isn't solid until it's tested. And then, without warning, the test arrived. John came back. No appointment, no call ahead, no warning. He simply walked to the front doors. Same dusty boots, same sun-worn shirt, same quiet dignity. But this time, everyone noticed. Michael stood up immediately. Ryan froze mid-sentence while helping a customer. Chad, standing by the display near the front, felt his chest tighten as he turned and saw him. John didn't speak. He didn't need to. He walked slowly, just like before, eyes scanning the floor, the machines, and the people. But now, his presence held weight not because they knew his name, but because they remembered what they had done. Logan, watching the security monitors in his office, moved fast. He stepped out and stood at the top of the staircase, watching his father with a mixture of respect and reverence. John moved from one tractor to the next, running his hand along a wheel here, pausing an engine there. He wasn't admiring the machines. He was watching the people. Chad approached cautiously. "Mr. Carter," he said, voice steady but humble. "Welcome back." John turned to him. His eyes weren't cold, but they searched. "I don't expect you to forget what happened," Chad continued, "but I hope you can see I'm trying to be better." There was a beat of silence. Then John nodded. "Trying matters," he said, "especially when no one's watching." It wasn't approval. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was real. Logan came down the stairs to join them. His father looked at him with the faintest of smiles. "Didn't think I'd see you here so soon," Logan said. "I didn't come to see tractors," John replied. "I came to see people." They walked together across the showroom, father and son. No long speech, just presence, the kind that says more than words ever could. Customers came and went. Employees kept working. But now, every move had purpose, not from fear, but from pride. The culture was shifting. The test wasn't just whether they'd treat John with respect. It was whether they'd treat everyone that way from now on. And they did. Michael helped a young woman compare specs, his tone patient and clear. Ryan gave a full demo to a couple who had never owned farm equipment before, explaining everything as if he had all the time in the world. Chad, once dismissive, now knelt beside an elderly man to adjust the seat height on a smaller model. John saw it all. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. After a while, he walked toward the exit. Logan followed. Stopping just before the door, John turned to him and said, "You built the machines. Now build the men who run them." Logan nodded slowly, feeling the weight of that charge settle into his chest. John stepped outside. No drama, no spotlight, just a quiet man walking back into the sun. But this time, he left something behind. Proof that change had taken root and was finally beginning to grow. Maybe you've experienced something like this. A moment when someone judged you by how you looked, not who you were. Or maybe you've been the one who misjudged someone else and later realized just how much it hurt. These stories are more than just stories. They're reminders. Reminders that kindness still matters. That respect shouldn't be earned. It should be given. That people can grow. And that sometimes all it takes is one moment to change everything. If any part of the story made you pause, made you reflect, or made you feel something, click the like button. Not for us, but for what this story represents. Your like helps this video reach more people. People who might need this reminder today. People who are still learning to listen or hoping to be heard. So go ahead if it meant something to you. Let it show. By the start of the next week, something unexpected began to happen. Calls started coming in. First a few, then a dozen. Customers from different towns asked if the man who'd gone viral for speaking with his silence really worked at the Carter dealership. Some mentioned seeing a clip online. Others simply said they were curious about the kind of store that treated people like that. Chad didn't understand at first. Then Michael showed him the video. It was raw, filmed on a phone by one of the customers during John's quiet return. It didn't include his name or show his face clearly, just a silhouette of an older man walking through the showroom while the staff treated him with care, dignity, and attention. No big speeches, no dramatic twist, just kindness. The caption read, "This is how you treat people, no matter who they are," and it had over 2 million views. Logan stood in his office, arms crossed, watching the comment section scroll. "I drive 3 hours just to be treated like this. This isn't about tractors. This is about humanity. We need more companies like this one." He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just watched, quietly absorbing the impact. It wasn't about fame. It was about finally seeing his team become the reflection of everything his father had taught him. The media requests followed. Local news wanted interviews. A regional farm podcast asked if someone from the staff could speak about the Carter Standard. Even a national agriculture magazine reached out, asking for a photo of the team. But Logan made a decision. No interviews. No press releases. Not yet. Instead, he gathered the staff together that Friday morning. They stood in a loose circle near the front of the showroom. No uniforms, just people. People who had made mistakes, learned from them, and now stood on the edge of something real. Logan looked at them and said, "You've started something here, and now the world is watching." A quiet shuffle passed through the team. Ryan nodded. Michael stayed still, as always. Chad looked down, then back up, owning the moment. "But before we go out there," Logan continued, "I need to know, is this real, or is it just for the cameras?" No one answered immediately, and that was good, because it meant they were thinking. Chad spoke first. "I used to think reputation came from what people saw on the outside, but now I know it comes from what you do when no one's looking." Michael added, "We're not finished, but we're not who we were." Logan nodded. That's all I needed to hear. The rest of the day passed like any other, except it wasn't. The energy had changed. There was purpose behind every handshake, intention behind every demo. People came from neighboring counties, some even from out of state. Not all bought tractors. Many just came to see if the place in the video was real. And it was. John didn't return that week. He didn't need to. His presence had already been sewn into the fabric of the building, like the roots of a tree that kept the whole thing grounded. Late that afternoon, an elderly man named Hank walked in. His overalls were patched, and his hands were stained with years of labor. He didn't say much, just wandered through the store until Chad approached him. "Looking for anything in particular?" Chad asked. "No," Hank said. "Just wanted to see if you'd treat me the same way you treated that man in the video." Chad smiled. "We don't treat anyone special here," he replied. "We treat everyone with respect." Hank chuckled. "Well, that's about as special as it gets these days." They shook hands. Another seed planted. The world wasn't changed yet. But in that small corner of it, between bolts and engines, between old mistakes and new beginnings, something had started to bloom. And it was just getting started. Now I want to hear from you. What part of the story resonated most? Was it John's quiet strength, Chad's transformation, or the moment the store finally began to change? Tell us in the comments. Don't just scroll past. Share something. Even if it's just your first name and the city you're watching from. Because every comment here becomes part of something bigger. A space where we remind each other that respect, humility, and second chances still matter. We read every single one. And in the next video, we'll send a shout out to someone from the comments, maybe even to you. So go ahead. What's your name? Where are you watching from? And what did this story make you feel? Let's build this together. The sun had barely risen when Logan received a call. It was from corporate, not a routine check-in, not a follow-up on sales numbers. It was a formal notice. The board of directors, after catching wind of the recent viral attention, had scheduled a surprise audit. They wanted to know if the Carter culture was authentic or just a publicity stunt. And they weren't coming quietly. They'd be sending 2 executives from headquarters, high-ranking, cold, known for restructuring stores without blinking. They'd arrived that afternoon. Logan hung up the phone, his jaw tight. He knew what this meant. It wasn't just a performance review. It was a trial by fire. Everything the team had been working on was about to be judged by people who didn't know the story, didn't know John, didn't care. For them, numbers mattered. Efficiency, image, not growth, not redemption. By noon, the tension inside the store was electric. Michael straightened every display 3 times. Ryan rehearsed greeting lines under his breath. Chad tried to stay calm, but the pressure weighed heavy on his chest. When the black sedan pulled into the parking lot, the entire team stood a little straighter. Out stepped 2 sharply dressed executives, 1 man, 1 woman, suits tailored, expressions unreadable, clipboards in hand, no smiles. Logan met them at the door. "Welcome to Carter Equipment," he said. They didn't shake hands. "We'll observe independently," the woman replied. "Pretend we're not here," which was impossible. They watched everything. How the team approached customers, how they explained products, how they handled objections. They took notes, asked cold questions, interrupted conversations. Their presence turned every interaction into a performance. Chad felt himself slipping. He greeted a customer too stiffly, forgot a feature spec, misread a budget line. He was trying to be perfect and losing his grip on being real. At one point, the male executive caught him after a pitch. "You hesitated," he said. "Why?" Chad swallowed. "I was trying to give the customer space to think." The executive raised an eyebrow. "You lost momentum. That's inefficient." Chad didn't respond, but inside, something cracked. He wasn't being judged for kindness or for growth. He was being measured against a ruler he no longer believed in. Meanwhile, Ryan stumbled over a technical detail. Michael was reprimanded for wasting too much time with an undecided buyer. Even Logan was pulled aside and questioned about his emotional leadership style. It wasn't a review. It was a dissection. And by the end of the day, the energy in the store had dropped to near silence. When the executives gathered the team for closing remarks, everyone stood in a loose circle, shoulders tight, eyes down. The woman spoke first. "We've compiled our notes," she said. "Your store has received unusually high public praise over the past week. However," but she never finished. A voice cut across the room. "I'm sorry," Chad said, stepping forward. Everyone turned to look at him. Logan's heart dropped, but Chad didn't flinch. "I need to say something, not to defend us, just to be honest." The room held its breath. "I made mistakes," he said. "Big ones. I disrespected someone who deserved better, not because of who he was, but because of who I thought he wasn't." He looked at Logan, then at the team, then at the executives. "This place changed me, not because someone forced me to be better, but because someone gave me a chance to be better. And the way we treat people now, it's not strategy, it's not branding, it's who we are trying to become." The room was dead silent. Then Michael spoke. "He's right. You can measure numbers all day, but you'll never understand the worth of what happens here unless you value people." Ryan added softly, "We're not perfect, but we're real." The male executive shifted uncomfortably. The woman, for the first time, seemed to pause. Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture softened. "Noted," she said. "We'll forward our assessment to the board." They turned and walked out just as silently as they'd arrived. When the doors closed behind them, the team stood still. Logan exhaled. Slowly, deeply, he looked around and saw something beautiful. They had been pushed, prodded, measured, but they hadn't folded. They had stood for something. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The next morning, the store was quiet again, but not from fear. This time, it was anticipation. Everyone had shown up early. No one had said it out loud, but they all felt it. Today was the day the verdict would arrive. The board's decision. The judgment over everything they had tried to build. Logan sat in his office with the door slightly open, his eyes on the inbox. No email yet. Chad was the first to speak. "Whatever happens, we did it right." Michael nodded. "They can shut us down, rebrand us, replace every one of us. But they can't take back who we became in this process." Even Ryan, usually lighthearted, was unusually reflective. "Feels weird," he said, "to care this much, to hope." At 9:12 a.m., the notification came. Logan clicked the email. Read once, then again, then stood up and walked into the main floor. They all turned to him, and for a long second, he said nothing, just looked at them, not as employees, but as people who had fought for something bigger than numbers. Finally, he spoke. "They're keeping us open." A collective breath escaped the room. "But not just that," Logan continued. "They're changing the training model based on us." Silence. Then Ryan blinked. "Wait, what?" Logan smiled. "They're calling it the Carter Method. They want our team to lead the new customer service approach for every dealership in the company. Nationally." Chad leaned against the counter, stunned. "They actually listened?" Logan nodded. They didn't understand everything, but they saw something they couldn't deny. Michael smiled, not a big one, but deep. "We didn't just save the store," he said. "We started something." In the hours that followed, the store felt different, brighter, fuller, alive. Calls came in from other branches asking for advice. emails from executives congratulating the staff. A newsletter went out company-wide, quoting Chad's speech almost word for word. The photo of the team was featured on the internal portal with the headline, "The Store That Chose Character." But the most important moment came late that afternoon, when John walked in. He didn't say anything at first, just stood inside the front door, watching his son and the team work. Customers were laughing. Employees were smiling. No one was performing. It was real. Chad noticed him first and walked over, slower this time. No panic, no pretense. "Mr. Carter," he said, "I think we finally built the place you were hoping to see." John studied him for a moment, then smiled. "I think you built something even I couldn't have imagined." The two men shook hands. Firmly, fully, Ryan and Michael joined them. Logan approached quietly and stood beside his father. "You heard?" Logan asked. John nodded. "All of it. They won't call it the Carter method," Logan said. John chuckled. "I'm not sure I deserve that." Logan looked around. "Maybe not, but you inspired it." And then, for the first time since this journey began, John placed a hand on his son's shoulder and said, "You made me proud. Not because you saved the store, but because you saved the people inside it." There were no speeches, no standing ovations, just the kind of silence that only happens when something sacred has taken place. The kind of silence that doesn't ask to be noticed, only remembered. 2 weeks later, the change was no longer just visible. It was undeniable. Carter equipment had become a reference, not for sales numbers, not for product lines, but for something far rarer, how it made people feel. Other branches began sending staff to observe. The showroom that once struggled to find its soul now welcomed regional managers, consultants, even interns from other industries. All wanted to understand what happened there. And when they asked, they weren't shown manuals. They were shown people. Chad led most of the internal tours. The same man who once dismissed the quiet ones was now teaching teams how to listen, really listen. He stood beside nervous trainees and said things like, "If you want to be good at this, don't memorize the specs. Learn to read the silence." Ryan, once distracted and defensive, had found his voice. He now ran the training simulations, teaching role plays based not on pitches, but on empathy. Michael remained the rock. He didn't talk much in the sessions. He didn't need to. His presence said more than any PowerPoint ever could. And Logan? He stepped back, not out of weakness, but out of trust. He had built the structure. Now it was time to let others carry it forward. Instead of running the floor, he now spent time mentoring one-on-one, quiet walks around the showroom, personal check-ins, leading from behind. But perhaps the most powerful shift came in the way the team talked about John, not as the boss's father, but as a seed. His story became part of the onboarding process, not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. The video that once went viral had faded from headlines, but not from hearts. Customers still mention it when they visited. Some said it brought them back to memories of their own fathers. Others said it reminded them to slow down, to pay attention, to be better. One day, a young woman named Elise walked into the store. She was fresh out of college, interviewing for her first job in agricultural equipment. Logan met with her personally. "What draws you to this line of work?" he asked. She smiled nervously. "I saw the clip, the one with the older man walking through the showroom. No one knew who he was, but you treated him like he mattered." She looked around. "I want to be part of something like that." Logan leaned back in his chair. For a moment, he saw her not as an applicant, but as a reflection of everyone who had come before her, everyone who had fallen, changed, and chosen a better path. He extended his hand. "Welcome to the team." As the sun dipped behind the trees that evening, the showroom lights stayed on, customers lingered, staff members shared stories. And in a quiet corner, a photo had been added to the wall. It showed the team, Logan, Chad, Ryan, Michael, standing in front of a row of tractors. Beside them, almost blending into the background, stood John, arms crossed, face calm, a man who never asked for recognition. Above the photo, a simple plaque read, "We treat everyone like family," because once we were taught what that really means. if you made it this far, if something in this story stayed with you, even a single moment, a single sentence, then maybe this wasn't just a story. Maybe it was a mirror, a reminder of who we can become when we choose empathy over ego, when we stop performing and start connecting. If it made you feel something, hit the like button. Not for us, not for the algorithm, but because it tells the world this matters, respect matters, redemption matters, people matter. And if you're the kind of person who still believes in that, then don't just watch from the outside. Subscribe to the channel. Join a community that's not here for perfect stories, but for real ones. Stories where mistakes are made, but lessons are learned, where pride is broken, but character is built. We're just getting started. And we'd be honored to have you with us for what comes next. Months had passed. The rush of media attention had faded. The excitement of transformation had settled. And Carter equipment had become something new. Not louder, not bigger, but deeper. You could feel it in the way customers were greeted. Like neighbors. You could hear in the conversations between staff. Slow, thoughtful, real. The showroom was still polished. The tractors still gleamed, but it was no longer about the machines. It was about the people who walked between them. Logan sat alone in his office one evening, long after closing time. A soft hum from the vending machine was the only sound. Outside, the wind stirred the dust across the gravel lot. Inside, the lights glowed dim, like a home after the party has ended, but where the warmth lingers. On his desk sat a letter. It was from the board. It thanked him for implementing what had now become a company-wide culture model. New hires across the country were now trained with the Carter values. His store had become the standard. But that wasn't what made him emotional. It was the final line. This new foundation, one rooted in humility, respect, and second chances, will bear the Carter name. He read that line 3 times. Then he looked up at the photograph on the wall. The same one customers passed every day without always noticing. His father, standing behind the team, arms folded, face quiet. John Carter, the man who'd walked through the doors as a mystery, who'd been laughed at, dismissed, ignored, and who had responded with silence, not as surrender, but as strength. Logan whispered to the empty room, "You never wanted the spotlight, but you gave us something better than attention. You gave us a standard." A knock came at the door. It was Chad. He stood there awkwardly, holding a gift-wrapped box. "For you," he said, "from the team." Logan opened it. Inside was a simple brass nameplate. It read, "Logan Carter, leader of a legacy." Below it, a second line, "Inspired by the quiet man who started it all." For a long time, Logan said nothing. He didn't have to, because sometimes the greatest stories aren't the loudest. They're the ones lived out in small gestures, silent integrity, and the courage to change, not for recognition, but because it's right. Outside, the last customer of the day was walking to their truck. Michael held the door open. Ryan waved them off. Chad adjusted the lighting for the next morning. And Logan stood in the doorway of his office, watching it all, knowing the story wasn't ending. It was just becoming a legacy, one built not on profit, but on character. Final reflection plus Inserimento optional calm CTA. Maybe you saw a part of yourself in this story. Maybe you've been overlooked, or maybe, like some of them, you've been the one doing the overlooking. Either way, there's always time to grow, always space to change. And sometimes the quietest people leave the loudest impact. If the story spoke to you, if it stirred something inside, or made you see the world just a little differently, then you're not done yet. Because the next video, it's not just a continuation. It's a revelation, a story that might challenge your perspective and possibly change the way you see yourself and others forever. All you have to do is click the video that's on your screen right now. It's waiting for you. And trust me, you won't forget it.